Okay, so in the last lesson we subnetted the exercise. We used a variable length here, which is /30, right? We're just jumping out of our shoes a little bit. This is like to be in an advanced course. And what we're going to do now is to set up the interfaces on all these PCs, as well as the switches and the routers. Alright? So first and foremost, we're not going to use the zero network, so we're going to put this as not used. Right? We're not going to use this, so we're going to focus, in fact, on these three networks that subnets. So right, so I'm just going to delete this. So for PC2, its IP configuration is 192.168.1.34. Right, so we're going to go to PC2. Right, we go to the IP configuration. I'm going to type it in here. I mean, we could copy and paste it for those who feeling lazy. Right, 192.168.1.34. Subnet mask will be 224 because /27, and the default gateway will be the router address on fast Ethernet 0/0. Alright, we won't be doing any IP version 6 configuration for this lesson because this is an introduction here to static routes. Right, we'll also as we hear one time, we'll configure PC1 as well, and PC1 will take up the IP configuration. And it's good to sit down and really plan it out properly first before we move on. Right, and its subnet mask will also be 224. Right, but its default gateway would be 97. Okay, so we actually set up the interfaces both on the PCs, on both PCs. Right, so what we're going to do first, and we won't be able to ping this PC for itself because, as you can see, the status is down. I'm going to just move this a bit to the center, and I'm going to set up the interface on my router. Now if I double click on router 2, you'll notice that I don't have the WYSIWYG, and I don't have access to the command line either. So what I will have to do, I'll go to my PC devices, my end devices, and take up a laptop PT. Right, I'm going to take a rollover cable and connect the rollover cable to my console port, and connect it to my router console port. I'm going to use hyperterminal to configure this router. Right, now bearing in mind the router address on fast Ethernet 0/0 is .33. So let's move on now. So we're going to double click on laptop, and we're going to use the hyperterminal program. We're going to use it by default, and we're going to console into the router. Right, and of course we learned in previous lessons that to get into the privilege exec mode, you use EN or enable. Alright, and if we have to do any further router configuration, we have to go into global configuration mode, which is conft or configuration terminal, conft for short. Now the first thing I want to do on this router here before I start, I want to change its host name. So I'm going to change host name. So I'm going to put host name, right, R2. So this is router 2. Alright, and I want to configure fast Ethernet 2.0.0 with an IP address. How do I do this? I go to the interface. So I'm going to type INT for short, fast Ethernet 0/0 for short, and press enter. So I'm inside interface configuration right now, and I'm going to type IP address 192.168.1.33 as this default gateway, and the subnet mask is 255. My bad, not as the default gateway. Yeah, that's the correct thing. My bad. 255.255.224. Right, and then I'm going to press enter because I have configured the IP address on this interface. I'm going to type exit. In fact, before I type exit, I'm going to bring up the status line protocol. So I'm going to type no shutdown, right, to bring up line protocol, and I'm going to type exit again, and as you could see from that on PC2 configuration has it's all green. That means it's all go, right? But as I'm in packet tracer here one time, I could, because I'm on router 2, I could also set up the serial connection on serial 2S2/0. And if I go back to my notepad file, I would know that router 2 serial connection is 66 on a /30 252. So let's set up that interface one time. So again, I'll go to conft, go back into global configuration mode. I'm going to go interface serial 2/0, and then I'm going to set up that interface on an IP address 192.168.1.66 with a net mask of 255.255.255.252. Right? I'm going to press enter, and then I will type no shutdown. Since this is the DTE end of it, that means with no clock rate. So I'm not going to configure a clock rate on this side. Right? Cool. Right? So in order for this to come up all entirely, I'll have to go now to this router 1 and configure a clock rate, and then the 2 status will be up. So before I move on, right, I'm going to first exit, and I'm going to copy the running configuration file, copy run start as for short, into non-volatile RAM to save the configuration of router 2. Right? If we were to do a show IP route, which is kind of premature to do now, right? My bad. Show IP route. We'll see that there are one connected network, which is the 32 network so far. Right? So if I go to PC1 or PC2 in my bad, and I go to this command prompt, I first could ping myself, ping 192.168.1.34, right? And I could also ping my default gateway, 192.168.1.33. Oh, my bad, I typed the wrong command, 192.168, and I can just use the up arrow, .1.33. So we see that PC1 could ping its default gateway. Alright, let me just check my time to see if I can move on or to go to the next lesson. In fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to save off this one and continue the configuration on router 1.